So welcome to this solstice gathering on December 21st, 2021. Enlivening the ocean of consciousness to increase global harmony and stop techno-ecocide of the earth, the seas, and the sky. From the Brain Research Institute, we offer this: conquer world toxicity with brain-based coherence-creating technology to enliven global collective consciousness. My name is Dr. Alaric Ernander, and my wife, Cynthia, and I are with the Brain Research Institute, USA. The whales need our help. The planet needs our help. We need our help. But there's a fundamental problem I want to address here that encompasses the whales and all the other things we consider needing to be taken care of. A fundamental problem. In this world, there's an acceleration. Now, it's important, before we move on here, to make sure we all understand what we mean by acceleration. If you have a car and you drive out of your driveway into your neighborhood, you step on the gas and you go from stationary to 10, 20, 30 miles per hour. And then remain constant. You take your foot off the gas a bit and you remain constant at 30 miles an hour as you drive safely through the neighborhood. But that's not acceleration. You accelerated to get to 30, but then you backed off acceleration. What if your gas pedal got stuck? And instead of stopping at 30, you continue to go 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 110, so forth, trying to navigate through your neighborhood, which was not designed for that speed. And eventually, either your ability or the car itself would not succeed in enduring, and it would be a disaster. So we're going to talk about acceleration in the tense of planet Earth. There is an acceleration going on. Here, for example, as everybody's aware of, atmospheric CO2. Across the bottom, 1850 to the year 2000, 2020. Across the left-hand side, how much particles per million, per billion in the atmosphere of CO2. It's not a constant line. The line continues to get sharper and sharper and sharper. That's exponential. That means the gas pedal is not off. The gas pedal is on, and we're getting more and more CO2 every year released. Now, the CO2 comes from many sources: oil, gas, coal, cement making, land use. But regardless of exactly what is the source, they're all human sources. Still, the trajectory is exponential. That means it's climbing essentially out of our control. We created all of this, but we created something that's we're losing control of, actually a long time ago. Now, this slide, I know you really can't see easily. It wasn't intended to go into detail, but this is the great acceleration. On the left are a bunch of red slides. Socioeconomic acceleration. On the right-hand side are the Earth system accelerations. Let me just briefly mention them by name, but you can see on the left-hand side, the red curves go up sharply, exponentially, accelerated. World population is accelerating. Urban populations are exponential. Energy use is exponential. Fertilizer consumption, exponential. Large dams, water use, paper production, transportation, telecommunications, international tourism, all these things are exponential and accelerating. And on the right-hand side, in green, we see acceleration of carbon dioxide, which we just mentioned, nitrous oxide, ozone, surface temperatures increasing. The acidification of the ocean is exponential. The capture of marine fish has plateaued off, but it was exponential. Tropical forest loss is also exponential. So in general, both man-made phenomena of socioeconomic trends and the Earth system which we're impacting are all becoming exponential, accelerating out of our regulatory control. So on the simple slide, we see the rate of change on the left. Things go faster and faster, faster. And on the bottom, time. And you can see that the world is not changing in a constant straight line. It's bending, curving sharply. And that sharp curve is called exponential, and it gets faster and faster every day. Now, that in itself may not be a problem. The real problem is this line. This white line is me, it's you, it's our institutions, it's our cultures. That line is human adaptability. Human adaptability was pretty flat-lined. It's increasing a bit, but not as fast as the world we're creating and changing. We have disconnected from our effects on the world, from our ability to actually guide those effects properly. There's a fundamental disconnect in this age of acceleration between our world systems that we created and our ability to adapt as human beings. And how do we bridge that disconnect? Fundamentally, to adapt, we use our brains. And our brains allow us to be aware. Is there a problem? How do we take care of it? What creative solutions do we have? How much do we understand? How much compassion? What about our values, our belief systems? How much morality? All of these things are involved in our ability to adapt. We adapt in our family, our state, our country. Can the world adapt? But the most important here is that at the basis of awareness, we need to increase who we are, because that will automatically increase not only our intelligence, but also the values and beliefs which guide that intelligence for proper compassionate solutions. We're failing in our adaptation. That's what that graph showed. We're getting outstripped in our ability to control the future we're creating. And that's because, in particular, the stress, individual stress and collective or social stress. In the last couple of years of the pandemic, people are becoming more and more acutely aware of how stress impacts human behavior and collective behavior. So in this world, what we need is something fundamental. And what is fundamental is consciousness. Consciousness is the basis of our ability to be aware, to be intelligent, creative, to have beliefs and value systems, to care about anything. We're sitting at home. Do we even know there's whales? Do we care about whales? Do we have time to care about whales? How do we care about the whales when they're millions or thousands of miles away and we don't know what they're doing and who's in charge? And how do we take care of whales? How do the institutions in charge of the whales take care of whales? How do we interface everything? It ultimately comes down to consciousness. Consciousness is fundamental. And meditation is a technology that can actually accelerate our adaptation. This is the solution to our problem. But meditation technology on the individual and collective level is a way to reconnect ourselves to whales, to everything, to each other. It's a way to reconnect the planet to who we are. So as we journey through life, we have basic questions. The question is, how do we see the world? How do we see the world? What is our view of the world? In fact, more importantly, how do I see ourselves in the world? You can say there's a whale over there, but is that whale part of my world? Do I care about that whale or that other element that's at risk? How do we increase our participation in the world which is around us and we live in and breathe in and depend upon? Well, just to remind ourselves, in modern physics and all the different levels of quantum mechanics and otherwise, everything is interconnected. The essence of this universe is interconnectedness. There's just gigantic field of intelligence that everything is embedded in. And that's also true for nature. All of nature is a huge field of interconnectedness. Think of all the things that create a healthy ocean: the plankton, the temperature, the pH, the currents, the food chain, plastic. All these things influence the health and the harmony and connectedness of the creatures in the ocean, or the creatures in the sky, or the land. Same things for the brain. Our human brain is essentially an information machine which depends upon connections. Connectedness of the human brain is about our adaptation. The cells in the brain work because they work together to some extent. If they don't work well because of stress, then we don't remain connected to our proper thinking and desires and so forth. And if we get rid of the stress, then that interconnectedness can grow, and therefore our ability to understand, to believe, to function and work in a harmonious way will increase spontaneously. So in this world then, everything is interconnected, and here is the solution. We need to find how to interconnect our brain to interconnect with our family, our society, and the world, and all the species in the world. It won't work on the surface level. It has to start on the fundamental of who we are. Do I care? And if I care, what can I do? And how can I do it intelligently and in a way that benefits everybody? These are questions that come from consciousness. And interconnectedness in science can be called coherence, how things are orderly connected to each other. How coherent is the family? How coherent is the society? How coherent is ocean? So let's look at the human brain, since it's the source of the future in terms of what we created and how best we can manage it. In the human brain, there's a special part in the very front, in this yellow circle there. That yellow circle is the prefrontal cortex. I mention this because this is the nexus. This is the center, the locus of our ability to adapt. And stress harms this part of the brain and the whole brain, but it harms our ability to adapt. Stress is the enemy. The outcome is poor adaptation, and the ultimate outcome is the future, which has problems that we're facing even as of today that are just going to get worse moment by moment. Let's take a look at the prefrontal cortex. Here are the responsibilities one can list for modern science that drive our ability to adapt. How do we adapt? Requires awareness. If you don't know there's a problem, there's no place to start. Do you care about the problem? What's your belief and values? What is your goal and motivation? If you care, are you actually going to do something? Is there a creative solution? Is there a solution which is intelligent and works for the long for everybody? Can I control what I do with the environment and do with our situation here? Can I have some ability to control the situation? How are my emotions? Am I stable and steady? And can I learn quickly to modify what I need to do so that I can benefit the whole range of life on work? So to do that, as you see, you got a little cap here. Modern science has brain waves, and we can measure EEG and measure brain coherence. Let's do that and show that meditation can actually concretely influence brain and therefore influence all the aspects of how we think, feel, and behave, therefore at adaptability. And if the brain can increase its adaptability, in particular accelerate our adaptability to catch up, we have a solution. So let's take a look. So here is a statement that comes from 50 years of research. Transcending dramatically increases brain coherence or brain orderliness. Transcending meaning using a meditation where the mind settles down to its foundation of the source of thought. So meditations, in general, there's many kinds of meditation. They all have a good influence on the brain in general. Some have this effect or that effect, but when we can transcend in the meditation, those research studies indicate remarkably high levels of brain coherence and change in thinking, feeling, and behavior, and social behavior. So here, for example, shows you an icon, a cartoon of a person, and you can see the prefrontal cortex in the front. And we're going to look at how orderly thinking and action come from this. Those red lines between the dots indicate how much coordination or coherence or orderliness there is between those 2 points. So if there's more red, if it's darker, there's more coherence. And you want more coherence. You want more orderliness or coordination. So the more red, the more orderly, ultimately the more adaptation. Now, that's one option on the left. And on the right is another option. Here are the same number of points on the cortex that you're measuring with EEG brainwaves. And you can see that at some point, you can have a lot of red. That means a massive amount of orderliness or coherence. Now, of course, we'd like to have the one on the right because more coherence means more good things. But most people look like on the left. The research, you can take 100 people from anywhere in the world and they look like the left. But if you look at people who practice meditation, in particular, this research comes from a half century of TM, transcendental meditation, that TM very quickly, within the first moments and days of meditation, create what you see on the right. And over time, stabilize that in our daily activity. So meditation is a powerful tool to turn on our prefrontal cortex, to turn on our ability to adapt in the family, in our society, in our jobs, and also in how we interact with the world, and ultimately helping the whales. So this is a diagram which shows that the brain, when it's coherent, has many different benefits. This is all research, that a coherence in the brain generates all these events. Let's highlight a few of them. One, decrease anxiety. The more coherent the prefrontal cortex, no stress. Very good idea. More intelligence. Meditation has actually been shown to increase the intelligence of human beings. Creativity. You can increase the creativity of human beings by just simply meditating for a few minutes each day. Self-awareness. You can be more aware of who you are and how you interact by meditating. And moral reasoning. Just to highlight these 5, but there's more. That by meditating and bringing about more orderliness and removing stress, the brain functions as it was designed to function from the level of consciousness. And we become better people, more creative people, happy people, people that are motivated to help create a harmony within our local area and on the planet itself. And this means coherence brings about greater adaptation. And remember, the issue here is how can we accelerate our adaptation? It's not enough just to continue to adapt as we have, because it's not going to help us. We're way too slow at adapting at the current rate. We'll never catch up. We actually have to accelerate our adaptation. That means we have to accelerate the growth and adoption and benefits to our human brain. So in doing that, let's summarize by saying all good things come from coherence, connectedness. That means good thinking, good feeling, good behavior, good motivation, good morality. All these things come spontaneously from a more orderly, coherent, stress-free brain. And that's the value of meditation, the value of consciousness as a fundamental, complementary to everything we do. You want to meet a policymaker and convince them to help the whales? It depends on who you are, who they are. What is the interaction between you? Who do they serve? Is the society behind such a viewpoint? All these things are needed. So the individual benefits greatly. All good things come from coherence. So coherence creates individual harmony, peace, happiness, success. But it also, in this last part of this presentation, increases collective harmony. Published scientific research shows that when people meditate in a group, there's an influence on society. Just spontaneously, there's an influence on that field of consciousness that impacts society. It's a documented thing. Let me just show you quickly some of that research. So to understand the research, we need to know we're all connected through layers of collective or social consciousness. We're all directly and indirectly influencing each other, either for positive or negative influence. If people in society are stressed, for example, that stress influences everybody else in society and is a root cause of social problems. And we see that growing sort of every day now with all the problems with the pandemic and our inability to deal with it properly. So during our meditation, on the other hand, when our minds settle down and we transcend, we touch upon an underlying universal field of connectedness. In physics, the unified field, and enliven harmony. We have 3 ands there because we're going to really enliven harmony. And because it's a non-localized field existing everywhere, it's also enlivened within our surroundings. So a group meditates in a certain spot, there's an influence on this field level to everything around you. The bigger the group, the bigger the influence. And what we've shown over the years is that groups of meditators practicing together have been documented to improve social behavior without any intellectual or media relationship. It's just on the level of consciousness itself. Here's a group, for example, in Thailand. They have influenced the direction of Thailand. Groups in India, groups in San Francisco, groups all over the world, groups coming together to meditate and influencing the collective consciousness, either nearby or afar. Here's one study I'm going to show you, only one. And this study is quite good. It's from about 30 years ago, 1993. The bottom is a timeline. On the left-hand side is January 2nd, 1993. On the right-hand side is August 14th. So about 3/4 of the year we see across the bottom, from winter to spring into summer. Across the other axis, going up and down, is violent crimes. This is FBI statistics, homicides, rapes, assaults per week. So serious crimes versus time. And what happens? Well, as you go through the year and the temperature increases, people go outdoor more and they get more aggravated usually. And there are two lines there. The black line, the dark line, is the actual crime rate recorded, and they recorded very accurately. And this study is done, by the way, by the police department, a number of institutions coming together and coordinated with the FBI to show that this study and this approach to social behavior actually works. So you have the dark line, and then there's a dotted line, which through a computer, you can actually estimate pretty well, based on temperature and a couple other variables, what's going to happen with violent crime. And you can see that as you go from the winter into spring and summer, more and more violent crime. What happens in the blue areas is at the beginning of June of 1993, more and more meditators started to come into Washington, D.C. during the summertime. And by the end of the time, it went from about 500 to 4,000 individuals meditating together in Washington, D.C. And what happened during that 2-month period? Look how the black line and the dotted line divorced from each other. They separated from each other. Cursor here. And you can see that it's predicted to be very high, and yet it wasn't. It actually dropped tremendously. This is a huge, significant drop in violent crime. In other words, violence in society, which means improper thinking, inability to adapt to personal situations, inability to gain what you want and desire it, which is the cause of crime, all began to melt away significantly. And then what happened was when the group went away, the off effect and the crime started going back up because the influence was not there. So there's an on effect, you get rid of crime. There's an off effect, you go away, and the crime will continue to climb. So this shows you that a group meditating together has, in a huge metropolitan area, changed social behavior. It also changed governmental activity and the positivity in the press, and all kinds of positive things happened. And nobody could understand why everything was working so well, except for the people who did the research and says, well, there's a group of people meditating. That's why this happened. There was no other explanation. So here's a group that was assembled there, about 4,000, in front of the White House in Washington, D.C. These individuals came on their own volition from all over the world, actually, to help participate in this demonstration project that a group of meditators can improve the adaptability of individuals and society to be more harmonious and productive and less violent and chaotic. My last slide in terms of research, here are 7 in blue major studies done for different cities and countries and the entire world showing significant improvement of positive trends and reduction in negative trends. A positive trend would be, how do we really help the whales? A negative trend is how to remove the negative influences that are impacting the whales, and so forth. So consciousness is a very powerful platform that's complementary to all the things we're already doing for the whales and other aspects of life on the planet. From Raymond Ross, who's the editor of the journal, he says, this evidence indicates we now have a new technology to generate peace in the world. If you have peace, people are going to work better together. They're going to have the situation better, think clearer, and be more harmonious in how we work with all the creatures on the planet. So for the Brain Research Institute, we've offered this short presentation, Conquer World Toxicity with a brain-based, research-based, coherence-creating technology, meditation, to enliven global collective consciousness, which will generate and accelerate adaptation and help us solve the problems we've created and will continue to create over the next period of time. So for the whales, we want peace in the ocean. But for the planet, we want peace as well. We want everything to be peaceful. Maybe the whales will inspire everybody for everything. But for now, we're focusing on the whales, but the whales are these innocent, beautiful creatures which indicate that the planet really needs our attention. And the fundamental solution in our attention is to generate this collective coherence. We have the technology to accelerate human adaptation. The research over 45 years have shown that, 50 years. We can eliminate individual and collective stress, build coherent brains, harmonious thinking, behavior, good belief systems, and evolution and morality. It's all been shown by research and demonstrated practically. It's easy to do, it's simple, and it's complementary, as I mentioned, to everything else we're already doing. Coherence creates harmony for the individual and for society. One thing works on all levels because it's consciousness. And our brain coherence is the basis of societal order and harmony. You want order and harmony, it has to start in the individual brain, which then becomes collective. So let's summarize by saying that increased consciousness, meditative techniques, increase brain orderliness. When you increase brain orderliness, you accelerate and increase adaptation. The individual and society work better. And as a result, we increase the health and harmony of all the individuals and all the societies. So in this world, everything is interconnected. Together, we have the technology to dramatically increase our connection, to accelerate our adaptability, and to properly care for our dear planet. So, as we come together at the end of this presentation, I invite you all to participate any way you can across the world, to take command of the future, to engage yourself, participate in these technologies, to enliven the ocean of consciousness, which is at the basis of everything. We just need to bring it into our lives, individually and collectively. And by doing that, we can increase global harmony and stop techno-ecocide. I want to thank you for your attention very, very much. And wish you all the very best solstice. All the best.